Welcome all again to episode 6 of the Birdhouse, brought to us by Blubird. We have another exciting week. It's been um, quite a tumultuous week since the last time we talked. Some ups, some downs, but we're all here. We're building in Web3. We got a great episode, some amazing guests this week, and as always, we invite you guys to come up and join the conversation, whether through comment in the Discord or on our Telegram. But yeah, with all that, our topic tonight, as I said earlier, was we're going to be talking about building in Web3, product market fit, user acquisition strategies, community building, Web3 gaming, and more. What else could you ask for? All the different avenues of creating a business inside of Web3 and inside the crypto and blockchain space. So, as we get into it, I just want to give a minute to say hello to our Blubird team. Tonight we've got Ian joining us. He's the Chief Marketing Officer and always brings a ton of the conversation. And then we're going to have our two guests, and we might as well just jump right into it with them and have them introduce themselves. Let us know where they're coming from, how they got into Web3, and then we'll dive into the conversation. So first, I just want to give a special warm welcome to Monique from Nix. She's the head of marketing at NeoLaunch. And so, Monique, how are you tonight? Great to see you.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Um, I have a little echo on my mic. Do you guys hear that by chance?
I'm not getting any echo from you, but if anybody else in the
Okay, hold on. Let me try it
speaker
again.
panel is
Oh,
hearing that,
we're
we're
good.
good. Awesome.
We're good. Are we good? Okay, awesome. Thanks for the hearts, Erica. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me here. I've been excited about the spaces all week. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much for having me here. Appreciate this.
Well, we're excited to have you and the team here. Just so everyone realizes, Corey is a little bit under the weather, so
Would you like for me to do an intro?
that would be great.
Monique, are you having trouble hearing Ian?
Oh, I am. Okay, so I'm the buggy one. Let me step down and come back up. How about pass the mic over to Ryan?
All right, yeah, we'll bring Ryan up. We're also joined with the head of operations at NeoLaunch. So Ryan, welcome. He's behind the main account. So if you guys aren't already following NeoLaunch, please give them a follow. Check out everything they're doing. They are a Web3 crowdfunding platform, and they take the next great Web3 ideas from concept to market and beyond. And the approach is built on two principles: simplicity and efficiency. So look forward to hearing that. And Ryan, how are you tonight?
Hey, doing good, Micah. Thank you so much for the introduction there. And thank you, everybody, for attending and listening in on the space tonight. My name is Ryan. I am the head of operations with NeoLaunch, as Mike already mentioned. Behind the NeoLaunch account tonight, I'm not famous enough on my own, so using the NeoLaunch account just for exposure purposes here. Yeah, a little bit about NeoLaunch. NeoLaunch is, as Micah mentioned, a crowdfunding platform. It kind of merges the concepts of a private syndicate and a launchpad, where essentially what we do is we help facilitate project introductions to community rounds of participation and contributions, whether that be through seed rounds, private rounds, or public rounds, as a lot of other launchpads typically facilitate. However, we take a little bit of a different approach to it. We do not have an ERC20 token. Our approach is membership based, where once you are a member of NeoLaunch, you gain access to any and all projects that come through the platform. So a little bit of a different spin on a launchpad, more in line with kind of the private syndicate model, where it is a membership model with a capped membership at 1,500 memberships. So it's a very exclusive kind of launchpad and syndicate opportunity as well. Yeah, that's kind of the intro for NeoLaunch. A little bit about myself. I've been in the Web3 space now for about 4 or 5 years. Got involved late 2019, just kind of as an investor. Had a corporate gig before I started working in Web3, and one day, after a meeting with my boss, he kind of pulled me to the side. He brought up his Robinhood app, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this doggy coin thing?" And somehow, some way, that kind of spurred my interest in crypto and in Web3. It was at first, yes, Dogecoin. That was my first ever buy, but as time got went on, started getting more involved in kind of layer one chains, got involved a little bit more in understanding in DAO specifically, kind of navigated towards the Cosmos ecosystem, and then actually started my foray into Web3 as a career in gaming. So that's how I got my start. Was through a gaming ecosystem that had a launchpad element to it. Really fell in love with kind of the crowdfunding possibilities within Web3, and really dove a lot of my time and attention and research into that. And that led me to NeoLaunch here, starting in early 2024, and I've been here since day one.
Awesome. Love to hear. One of the things we like to do with this space, it's always great to have incredible guests and projects come up, but it's really also interesting to learn how people got here and got into Web3 and got started, and what their background was before, what drove them to the space. So I love hearing that you've been here for a little bit and learning about that. Monique, just checking in. Are you back, and can you hear? Could you hear Ryan there? Maybe she's still having trouble. Ian, I see you got your hand up. What's going on, my man?
Yeah, so Ryan, it's great to meet you. I think what you guys have been doing is really exciting. So based on what you were saying, the company NeoLaunch is really, I guess, an evolution of crowdfunding in a way, right? So it's not, a simple sale of upcoming products like GoFundMe, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, or something like Seed Invest. So can you give me a little detail as to like what the differences are that you see as propelling Web3 forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to crowdfunding opportunities, and really when it comes to just exposure to new projects and new companies, what Web3 is ultimately able to facilitate is decentralization of their ecosystem and early exposure to potential consumers and users who are coming in and wanting to utilize the application, but also wanting to find different ways to help promote the ecosystem as well as a whole. And that's kind of what launchpads help facilitate. It's not just a crowdfunding element, but it's also the network effect and exposure that can potentially be brought to a project. So, with NeoLaunch, we do facilitate launches through our Launchpad protocol. So obviously that's helping projects with fundraising and with building up capital and helping out with product development, but also it creates a network effect where you're not just getting exposure to different VCs that might have a thesis that has gaming involved, or a thesis that has AI involved, but it's also creating kind of a network effect where you're getting exposure to different levels of investment possibilities. So getting exposure to VCs, getting exposure to KOLs and influencers at those earlier levels, and also getting exposure to users and potential members of your ecosystem, essentially. So whereas when it comes to traditional fundraising, you're not necessarily putting yourself in more of a public facing position. It's done behind closed doors, it's done privately. Whereas with crowdfunding protocols in Web3, a lot more of that is front facing, and you can utilize a lot of that front facing exposure to really garner a lot of feedback within the ecosystem, figure out what works and what doesn't work as you're going through your product development and as you're going through the token raise. So really, it provides a lot of different possibilities when it comes to fundraising, but also to growing out your ecosystem, figuring out what kind of people, what kind of members really gravitate towards your product, and ultimately, the feedback is, maybe something that you're building is more appealing as a potential vertical to a certain group of people, and maybe something isn't as appealing as maybe you initially thought. And it gives you that opportunity to receive a lot of that feedback really early on in the process, as opposed to traditional fundraising, where maybe you don't find out until after a lot of that fundraising has already been complete and you're already through the majority of product development phases.
I love it. So it's really a much more direct connection to the community.
Yeah, exactly. And for the community's sake, they're getting a lot of exposure, not just to the project itself, but also to project founders as well. So you can really kind of understand the background of the people and the capabilities of the team that are behind the project, in addition to what the actual project is building, what kind of use case or product market fit does it ultimately serve in, not just the Web3 space, but potentially also in real world businesses as well.
Yeah, that was another question I have later on. Just, I know there's a huge dedication to Web3, but it seems like there's certainly a cross-pollination opportunity for the more traditional Web2 areas too.
Terrific. It looks like we've got Monique back. Brian, thank you for that. And Ian, great question. Ian, I think Monique is actually having trouble hearing you. So if you don't mind just rotating the stage too so she can hear you as part of the conversation. And while you're doing that, Monique, welcome back. We will continue to ask Elon to improve spaces, as this is obviously a platform that we all enjoy very much. And hopefully the bugs will get all sorted one day. But welcome back. Second week in a row. Loved having you last week. Do you mind just letting us know a little bit about Nix, your background and role at NeoLaunch, and then how you got into the Web3 space? Because that's what really everybody's personal story is one of the most fascinating things, and knowing their background is critical to that. But we all got here somehow. So take it away.
Oh my gosh, if you were talking to me, I had to do the up and down thing. Again, can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. No, so we were just we just wrapped up with Ryan, and he was kind of telling us a little bit about what NeoLaunch was and how he got into Web3, and we just wanted to give you the same opportunity to talk about Nix, and then how you got here and your role at NeoLaunch.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And also, I apologize. I think I've been up and down like 3 times trying to reset the spaces for me. Like, crossing my fingers that is the last time I have to do that. But a little bit about me. I originally started as a child development psychologist. While I was going to school, I was also a restaurant, bar, and club opener, and I worked on like the event marketing, grassroots marketing, guerrilla marketing, network marketing, and I kind of figured out that I absolutely loved it and I needed to change professions. And so on the side, I've also been an OG gamer for a really long time. I did some beta testing early on with like WoW and Star Wars Galaxies, and I was just having such a great time. I sort of caught the eye of a few people on the team, and then they ended up bringing me on as their quote unquote culture crafter, which is actually a term that I coined working with agencies later down the road. And then from here, I started taking a much stronger role in my career working with agencies. I love the idea of helping people come up with really original and creative and out of the box ideas. To me, marketing has always been like this interesting intersection between art and science and applied psychology. And being a closet artist myself, I needed this way to sort of incorporate, my creative brain, but also build just like this world for projects that I really wanted to get off of the ground. So as I was working with agencies, I think the first notable account that I worked with was actually Nike. I went on to help them out with one of their first dance campaigns because they wanted to create this new immersive feeling with one of their new accounts. It was also when they started sort of venturing out more into digital marketing, which they were, not as comfortable doing. And so I loved being able to help them with that. I also was onboarded to help with Samsung and Playboy down the road. Especially projects that had a focus on building their community alongside with their digital campaigns. From here, I just sort of built a name for myself as being like the person that didn't really care if I, messed up a campaign. Not that I did. It's just in marketing, you really had to pay very close attention to your success rate and your reputation. And it was something that I was willing to risk to just really help people come up with crazy out of the box things that they really wanted to do to set themselves apart in the market. This is actually how I was brought on originally from Web3. Nobody wanted to touch it. It was just this new area that nobody knew. They didn't understand. So I was originally brought on from Wax.io. And then from there, I also helped Playboy again with their Rabbitars campaign. And then I was brought on a little bit more into the degen side, working with some of the anime NFT brands, which I absolutely loved. It was so much fun trying to figure out how to help people launch in the last bull market. Um, then from here, I was also brought on to totally different industry. I actually was onboarded for an enterprise AI company where I worked there for a good year. They also wanted some original out of the box ideas when it came to how they were approaching B2B marketing and ABM marketing and building out some of their customer personas. And I had an amazing time with that. It was really cool to see sort of behind the curtain and where that industry is going. I really find that all of these, being able to go with the wind with some of these campaigns and being able to, invent and be creative with people, I think has really offered me such a cool perspective when it comes to marketing. And then also, I guess, after this, I stumbled into, NeoLaunch. I met NeoLaunch through a friend, a really actually big notable KOL friend. I joined their team, and we instantly, well, I love my team. I don't know if they would say the same about me. I would say they think Nyx is a little bit too wild if you ask like Ryan and my team, but I would hope that they're kind of used to me by this point. But from here, I sort of help them with their KOL roster, their event management, and just also, strategies for whenever they were incubating projects. And then really recently, I was promoted to head of marketing. But for me, mostly like in Web3 overall, like I'm very much of a relationships-based, network-based person. I love the media circuit and the spaces circuit, and I typically all over the places when it comes to spaces and events. Two of my close friends are in the audience right now, Erica and Van Ho, some gamer girls in the audience. We just recently started a pretty cool group for, girl streamers, and, really excited to, just kind of be on this Web3 journey and sort of, carve out a space for inventive people and visionaries and, people that really want to do, I'm not sure if it's okay to curse, but really do cool insert curse word there. But yeah, thanks for having me here, and I appreciate this.
Absolutely, you're totally welcome. This is a free space. It is. We do try to keep it a little more professional than some of the teaching spaces on the other shows that are out there. But there has certainly been plenty of foul words that have slipped, and so you're in good company here. But I loved your background, your explanation, and I also love your passion. I think we're going to be best friends because when you're talking about community building through digital campaigns, when in my background, other than doing some of the BD at Bluebird, I started in product serialization. And so we did that work for Converse and Nike, putting QR codes on their product and creating a digital touch point. And one of the things that, back in 2008, 9, we weren't able to fully capture was how do you create a marketing campaign that can be tied back to a product and create that communication channel. So really love that history, and excited to get to know you better through these spaces and find out what projects you're working on and how they're capitalizing on those sorts of new technologies that have emerged, but have also become more readily available, right? People didn't have the technology to make those connections, and now we all have a smartphone and NFC chips. So love to dive in on that. But really, I guess that kind of flows right into maybe our next topic here. But I'd love to know more about, from the Nyx perspective, some of your strategies on identifying product market fit in Web3. What do you guys look for?
Oh gosh. This is hard because I find that when it comes to Web3, in the last bull cycle, everything was in a very distant macro level. It was a lot of times theory and a lot of times things that we wanted to see happen in this space. And so this bull cycle, I really feel, or this upcoming one, apologies, I really feel this is us just really grounding some of those ideas and seeing like we're actually able to timeline it out a little bit better in the sense of like we can see that these things are going to happen possibly at this time frame, possibly very far into the distance, and sometimes some of these things can happen sooner. And so I find that product market fit in Web3 in many cases are things that a lot of us are still predicting are not going to happen in till 5 or 10 years from now. For instance, like a lot of the people that we're working with in gaming specific, a lot of their products are for ages that are not of that age yet. As an example, a lot of these are predictive, games that we think that Gen A is going to like, or think people that are actually really young right now. So when it comes to product market fit in Web3, it's like you almost have to look at it from like, what phase are we in right now? Because a lot of times the way that you're creating, your product is very much geared towards the funding round that you're in, or the phase that you're in, and what is going to appeal to those contributors or those markers for that time frame. And a lot of that is not really as relevant to the product in and of itself. And so that's why I find that it's very difficult, because there are a lot of products that are being launched right now that haven't appealed to investors, and they have not appealed to contributors, but they are the exact product market fit for their target audience a decade from now. So why is that relevant? This is Web3. Like we are exposing phases of building to people that are typically not, they're not exposed to typically those phases. There is an essence of like agile development that we're doing, and we're also keeping our audience very involved in all of the process, which means that user psychology and behavioral analysis, and analytics is just becomes so much more dynamic. It becomes so much more complex as well. Like a persona development. Typically, when you're doing persona development, you're creating those things for your product. If it's a gaming product, for instance, you not only have to think of the persona of the game that you're building for the actual player, but you're having to think about how you're marketing it for that specific phase, in and of itself, which means that your value proposition, for instance, has many layers, and it's speaking to many personas. And that's the same for your creative direction as well. So that's my first intro to product market fit in Web3. I'm sure there's a lot more that we can add to that and sort of bounce ideas off each other, I hope.
No, for sure. And I think, you kind of nailed it right on the head there, because there we are dealing with bleeding edge technology, and in a lot of cases, things that have never been used before, and may not be. Everybody links to Amazon and thinks about present day Amazon with Prime and AWS. But the concept of selling things online in 1998 was so foreign to anyone that people would barely even put their credit card information in. And we see a lot of that same fear. We love FUD around here when talking about fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That probably wasn't even a term back then, but it was a similar concept. And now we have our own wallet security and sovereignty and things like that. So totally understand. And you just have to build the product that people are eventually going to want and need. And that's really rewarding, but that also doesn't always meet up with the attention economy of we want it now and today. So I understand a lot of the builders in this space, and like I said, you nailed it, because the expectations you have to do to show up on a daily basis and get things done is way different than even what your community and your biggest supporters are expecting from you, when their attention is so divided by so many other things. So credit to you guys for knowing that and staying true. Being able to so succinctly say it and let our audience and our communities hear it, because it is important that they understand what we're doing. And it's not always, you can't have 100 million daily active users in a space when the technology isn't fully flushed. And like you said, the generation that's going to most likely use the product is still studying in high school, or just getting their first jobs. And we're building something that they won't use for the next 5-10 years anyway. So, I applaud you for figuring out ways to find this product market fit in Web3. And I think we're all scratching our heads, but it sounds like you guys have got your hands around it pretty well. I want to throw it over to Ryan. Thinking about Neo launch a little bit, like what are some of the challenges and successes that you guys have faced and actually achieving some product market fit through the things that you're launching with the crowdfunding?
Yeah, of course. So I can approach this kind of from the network effect and building out, us as a launchpad, but also from kind of the more user-facing journey. I'll start with the user-facing journey. I would say that probably the biggest challenge that we've had in really identifying, product market fit and ultimately kind of carving out a space for us as a launchpad and syndicate into space is somewhat, or I would say to an extent, a little bit in the model itself, in the membership model specifically. So if you remember back in 2021, early 2022, there was a lot of hype around NFTs specifically. Then the market crashed. Terra Luna happened, FTX happened, and all of a sudden, a lot of those NFTs became illiquid. There just wasn't as much of a market for them, despite there still being clear use cases and utilities to really leverage those NFTs as an innovative technology. But a lot of them were seen as illiquid and maybe a little bit less attractive from a trader or kind of a speculator standpoint. With our model, we do not use an ERC20 token. We've taken away a lot of the kind of the complexities around the Launchpad model by leveraging NFTs in that case. And with that, we're able to do a couple of different things. One, we have kind of stripped away the complex staking and locking mechanisms that are associated with a lot of launchpads, a lot of lottery participation metrics, and loyalty scores specifically. A lot of that traditionally centers around an ERC20 token, which is something that we don't use, which in a sense has created kind of a challenge, but also created an opportunity for a lot of users. A challenge in that memberships, because of the past association with NFTs, and I wouldn't necessarily say the downfall of NFTs, but the value that a lot of different NFTs have lost over the last couple of years aren't seen as favorably as maybe an ERC20 token. And one of the challenges that's created is with our membership model. The memberships traditionally cost about $400 to $500, roughly 0.149 ETH, and that's for access to any project on the platform. Other launchpads in the space, they might have kind of a similar model that's based around an ERC20 token, where if you hold the token, it enables access to a bunch of different projects across the platform, different rounds of fundraising, but the threshold and the cost basis for that is so much higher. But it also allows you, as an ERC20 token, maybe a little bit more liquidity to trade out of that position if you're not looking to be associated with that launchpad or take part in a lot of projects long term. Whereas NFTs in a lot of cases are seen as a little bit less liquid. So even though the cost barrier is much lower, the chances of being able to transact and trade out of that membership might be a little bit more challenging than a typical ERC20 token. So that's kind of one of the challenges that's associated with it, is really how do we make the memberships that much more appealing? And with it, like I said, cost barrier is much lower. But for us, I think kind of what our next direction is, and one of the things that we take a look at, is how do we make it so the memberships carry value not just within the neo launch space and enabling access to all these different projects that are coming through the pipeline, which right now we have a couple of, or two, I would say, of the most hyped Web3 games that are coming up, Dark Machine and Sparkball, that are associated with the platform. But also, how do we leverage it as potential membership or create member benefits outside of just the Launchpad and the syndicate itself? So potential partnerships with other projects who offer maybe different kinds of projects in a Launchpad format, or maybe different gaming or airdrop campaigns that are associated with it. So creating more or less interoperable utility with those memberships and not having them just be ecosystem specific. Now, as far as successes go, like I've said, we've stripped away a lot of that complexity that's typically associated within a Launchpad itself. So a lot of the kind of nickel and diming mechanisms that are associated with Launchpads that extract value from users at every single turn when it comes to not just how do I participate in the Launchpad, but how do I maximize allocations on that Launchpad, we completely stripped that away. We said, all this is bullshit. All it does is nickel and dime you. All it's made to do is extract value from you. And we completely simplified that approach, where membership, no matter what tier, grants access to every single project. Now, with it, we do have different tiers of membership, but we gamified the minting style of those memberships. So it's more of a blind box and a randomizer where users pay the same amount for memberships, and with it, they can either roll a standard membership, premium, or legendary. So there are different tiers within that, but it's done in a gamified manner. Now, the memberships are tradable, so you can go to OpenSea, you can take a look at different tiers of memberships, and ultimately, if you want to pay more than the mint price to maybe have an upgraded membership, that's certainly an option. But a lot of that complexity and a lot of the nickel and diming that are typically associated with launchpads, we've been able to completely strip that away while simultaneously offering much, much higher allocations and contribution opportunities for a lot of these projects than other launchpads might be able to do because of that more syndicate style format and because of that limited membership style. So with it, like I said, it's only 1,500 memberships. Not everybody contributes to every single project, but because it is more that fixed supply style, we're able to offer much higher allocations at a much lower price per user onboarding. So in terms of product market fit, that's one of the ways that we really shine, is keeping costs for users low when it comes to just entryways into the ecosystem, but rewarding anybody who is a member with a much higher allocation than other launchpads or syndicates might be able to offer.
I love that. And I love that approach. And I like that you took us back in time too, talking about some of the early NFT projects. And so many people do associate owning a digital asset with being a member, whether it's being a community member or an investor. Lots of different terms are thrown around. But when you only have a one-time event and those war chests get burnt out, then are you left to have the quote unquote members who feel they've already bought their entry in to support your business, or do you need an underlying service? And it sounds like you guys have found a way to kind of thread the needle, offer something that is valuable to the projects, but also keep your community and those people who have gone after those memberships and are helping you grow in the organic kind of Web3 way. You've given them access to things that they may not have otherwise. And so it does create value for them and for everyone in your community that's helping you build and helping these projects get funded. So shout out to you guys for recognizing that, as well as having a success story that I think other projects could look back on and say, what can we do to create this opportunity for people in our landscape? So I really love that. I think it's well thought out, and I'm excited to look more into it for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, and like you said, there, with blockchain and with Web3, there are a lot of projects who are building for the future. 3, 5, 10 years from now. I think as we start to get a little bit further and further away from the events of what was happening in 21, 22 with NFTs, a lot of overinflation in value, as we continue to divert a little bit further, and as time goes on, I feel like a lot of the attention and kind of the way that NFTs are branded or framed will ultimately become a little bit different, and maybe a little bit more attention will go back into NFTs, or they're just reevaluated entirely in terms of how they're viewed. Are they viewed as a membership? Are they viewed as kind of an entryway into something else, or is it just pure speculation? So I think a lot of that utility for different NFTs will ultimately be making a comeback, but it's just a matter of time. And as we continue to go further away from maybe kind of what was happening in the events of the last cycle.
For sure. Ian, I want to get you in here and kind of get Bluebird's perspective too on how you guys identify opportunities for this product market fit, and kind of what you're learning along the way, and any advice you have for other founders building towards this. And I think that last one, we can kind of put it up to the panel too. But Ian, let's hear from you first from the Bluebird perspective.
Sure. I think a lot of what Monique and Ryan said are relevant. When you think, Monique highlighted the different generations. We're building emerging technology, and emerging technology is a starting point. It's not an ending point. And that means it's going to continue to evolve. And from that, new things will emerge. So, we're just really at the infancy of all that's going to happen. But that's exciting because what we can't throw out the window, which a lot of places do, and Bluebird has made a very conscious effort to devote all the efforts to understanding the pain points and opportunities that our community, user base, partners are facing and to address those. We're not just creating things that we think are cool and then trying to convince people to get them. It's based on market needs. And if you don't do that, you fight an uphill battle. So that's a tremendous one. As far as the highlights that Ryan was saying, I think it's very interesting. It's actually quite symbolic because if you think about what's going on with gaming with blockchain, you know, we see now that blockchain is enabling better player experiences where people can earn or purchase assets and they have utility across games, across the ecosystem. So there's interoperability. And that's part of the whole ecosystem focus that Ryan was talking about. And we have that too. Again, you know, um, I know Corey is listening and probably has a million things he'd love to say. He's a little under the weather tonight, but if you think about all that went into the founding of Blubird and why, Corey has been in this space probably as long as most people we know and has been in so many different areas and listened to the projects, the companies, the teams that he reinforced, that he helped to found, the different, challenges that were faced. And he said, you know what? We need to address this. We need to improve these problems. We can't just keep going as is and forget about what needs to be done to ensure that people don't need to worry about, okay, we're starting. How the heck do we do tokenization? What do we possibly do with cap table management and smart contracts and deployment? All these very fundamental things that Web3 needs to have to make, them move forward and grow. So I think one of the fundamental things about Bluebird is that we are not just creating something, we are creating something that addresses needs. And I thank Corey for that because his background, his experience, and then we have, you know, people like Matt on our team who heads development, people like GP who heads product and creative and aligned with Corey and the rest of the team. These are people who have experience in, traditional business, fintech, Web 2, Web 3, and they're trying to do the best of the best. It's not just trying to do the next thing. So, I think Neo Launch and the team and Bluebird, we're well aligned in really trying to provide value to the community and make sure that we're pushing things that matter.
That's awesome. And I think, again, here's another example of how Web3 is different. And, when you do talk to founders on a regular basis, building the thing is only half the battle, literally. The rest is trying to set it up, trying to do it legally, go through the entities. There's a lot of time in your day that isn't actually spent on the thing that you want to build. It's just running a business. And so, you've actually laid it out really nice as some advice that you could give to other founders in that align with people who can help you or who have platforms that have been through this and have automated a lot of it through their experiences. And I think that's exactly what we've got here with Monique at Nix and with Ryan and Neil Launch, what they're doing with the crowdfunding and of course, just even getting your feet wet in the crypto and being able to tokenize your project, with Bluebird. So Ryan or Monique, do you guys want to jump in on tips you have for founders in terms of product market fit?
Oh, Ryan, go ahead. You unmuted.
Yeah, I was just going to say when it comes to advice for founders and when it comes to product market fit is just make sure that you have advisors that you trust more than anything. When it comes to when it comes to Web3 and when it comes to crypto, I don't think it's any secret that there is a lot of vanity when it comes to marketing metrics or research on product market fit. A lot of different companies or a lot of different marketing agencies that might be able to provide you spreadsheets or provide you metrics when it comes to engaging interest in the project, marketing reach, all that stuff. And that's all well and good, but a lot of metrics that a lot of different agencies throw out are vanity metrics. They don't mean anything. They're not community building. It's not active followers or active community members. I would probably just advise projects when it comes to product market fit, and I think this goes for user acquisition also in a sense, is make sure that you're building out a network of people that you trust, rely on their advice, ultimately do what's right for you, what's right for the project itself, and make sure as much as you can that you're not abiding by vanity metrics, and that you're really looking for different kinds of feedback from different kinds of people that ultimately will be value adds and value drivers for your ecosystem. So I guess that's probably the main piece of advice I would give, is build out a circle of advisors that you trust, and really make sure that you're listening to the feedback, not just from them, but also the people that will be involved in your ecosystem long term.
Perfect. And you you brought it all together. I just want to take a break here. We're about 45 minutes in. We usually go about 60 minutes, sometimes 90 if the conversation is leading in that direction, and all of our guests or speakers have that time allotted. So want to be considerate of your time as we're going through this. Conversation's just flying. So thank you guys for bringing so much value today. I want to thank our listeners too. Also, anytime you guys want to jump up in the conversation, please feel free. Just request down there, put up your hand, and we'll get to you when we can. And also just make sure you're following these amazing speakers today, because they're bringing a ton of knowledge and information. But Ryan, I guess I'll just keep rolling with you. You brought up user acquisition strategies. What, are there any innovative methods that you guys have come up with or worked or been able to learn from?
Yeah, I would say one of the bigger strategies that we've really deployed within this cycle itself, and just acquiring users, growing out our field of membership, is ultimately, and I kind of mentioned this in my previous answer, relying on people in your network that you trust, that are value adds, that align with not just your values, but also potentially within their own network as far as what they think the future of blockchain is, what they think the future of Web3, what the future of gaming is. So one of the methods that we've deployed as far as user acquisition goes is working with a series of different KOLs and different thought leaders within the space, and more or less implanting ourselves in their networks as their preferred launch partner or their preferred syndicate. So one of the examples that I can pull is we've worked pretty closely with Lady Trader Raw during this cycle, one of our closest KOL friends, and I believe a personal friend of Nick's as well. And what we did initially with her is a referral campaign that ultimately implanted NeoLaunch as kind of the preferred launchpad or a preferred partner within that network. And with it, we've really tried to align with different KOLs who ultimately share our values, share our thesis when it comes to what we feel like this cycle is really going to warrant, what we feel like future bull cycles in Web3 might look like, and ultimately making sure that we're providing projects for not just those KOLs, but for those KOLs community as far as what they feel like they would actually be interested in. So it's really important that we align with different KOLs who kind of share a similar thesis to us, and provide opportunities for the people in their circles and in their networks that are going to be there long term, not just within that different KOLs community, but also within ours as well. And with that strategy, we noticed a pretty significant uptick in contributions, especially for those initial few projects, because of that alignment in theses. And some people have an alignment in AI, some people have an alignment in gaming specifically. We do have a little bit of a propensity for gaming, because not just myself, but Ben, our protocol lead, we both worked in Web3 gaming before. So kind of a little bit of a soft spot for us personally, and we've aligned ourselves a lot with different KOL groups and different syndicates that have that same kind of passion for Web3 gaming. So initially, one of the things that we did, and I guess kind of an example that we can pull, is we've worked very closely with a gaming guild called the Wardens GC. worked with them on a couple different projects that we've ultimately brought through the Launchpad, but also projects that have not necessarily released games yet, but given attention to them in the lead up to the releases of their games. But with that community specifically, they didn't necessarily have a lot of education when it comes to early token opportunities, when it comes to the specifics of launch pads and what they can ultimately provide, what kind of levels of exposure they can bring for projects, what kind of opportunities are available for gamers at those earlier stages of projects as they're just launching a token or as they're just launching an NFT collection, and provided a lot of education for those communities as far as what to look for in different gaming projects, how launchpads ultimately facilitate that go-to-market strategy, and what kind of benefits come to the people who are involving at that earlier phase. We worked with them specifically in the lead up to a project that we launched, actually our first project launch called Castle of Blackwater, and that project sold out in about 45 seconds. Very, very quick sellout, and a lot of that was due to some of the attention and the education that we were able to provide for those people who may not know specifically what a launchpad does or what kind of services we can really offer to games and how we can help them grow over time. So that's one element. And second thing, and this is more a little bit more of an alpha, I guess, drop technically, is that for us, there's also considerations for temporary membership passes as well. It's not something that we've launched. It's something that we're kind of discussing internally as well. But ultimately, when it comes to the model that we have, and I kind of was mentioning this earlier, is that a lot of people view NFTs as a liquid. So regardless of the cost barrier of some of those NFTs, because that is the format in which they're being sold, a lot of people will just kind of scoff and say, maybe that's not really for me. So for us, we're constantly thinking of different ways to, maybe lower the entry into our ecosystem. And one of the considerations there for us currently is potentially the opportunity for a temporary membership pass, where users can come into the ecosystem if they're only interested in one project or a couple projects over a short period of time, allowing them access to participate in those projects. And then for us, as far as growing out the membership base, if we're doing our job the right way, if we're providing the best experience possible and providing more appealing projects in the future, then it makes that opportunity for converting, maybe passersby or casual users into long-term members in our ecosystem by providing them more value and more projects that they feel like ultimately fit their scope of contribution or what they're really interested in and how they see the future of Web3 moving.
Well, we love it when alpha gets dropped in the Birdhouse. So thank you for that. And also another amazing innovative concept that I wouldn't have thought of, but to your last point, if you guys are doing your job, that does create another, top of funnel opportunity to convert people long-term, a little try before you buy. So I love that thinking. And that's, more of the outside of the box that we need in this space to satisfy our existing communities, but also, that constant word of onboarding we hear all the time in spaces. I think that fits that problem as well. Monique, with all your digital campaign experience and everything, bringing that over to Web3, what effective user campaign acquisition strategies have you seen, and have you guys deployed that you guys think are a little different or foundational for this next wave of Web3?
Oh wow. I want to speak to this one a little bit broadly, in the sense that I want to give some people some advice to leave with. So last bull cycle we would have seen, and we do see this still today. We see a lot of airdrops. We see a lot of referral links. We see a lot of things like that were exciting to use in the last bull cycle. And we had people that were hunting for those things. Now, if you listen to most of the people on the panel, specific on specific verticals, they're kind of a little compassion fatigued with a lot of those strategies, to the point now where free things aren't really meaningful to a lot of people. And I think it's because things are only valuable when they're free if you know what the value is. So if you haven't spent the time educating your audience on the value, they're not going to appreciate when you give them anything for free. So I would say, what not to do, like don't give away so many things and exhaust your resources um, for things that people don't understand the value of to begin with. And also, like, we're also at a point now where digital marketing has gotten to a point where we are fatigued with sales, we are fatigued with marketing, we're literally overwhelmed. I think the last statistic was like, the average person has like a 10,000 to 30,000 like experiences of marketing in a single day. And so when you actually have somebody's attention, you should really treat that very honorably, in the sense of, like, if I have somebody's attention for 10 seconds, that's got to be the best freaking 10 seconds that they have all day with some sort of marketing, experience. And, when it comes to that, that sort of leads to like the way marketing is going down the future, in the sense where we are really seeing this in Web3 heavily, where we want to be connected with other people that we trust. So we are seeing now it's actually really hard to get the attention of somebody that is not inside of your network in some respect. And so your like social scores, they would call it, and I hate calling it that, but it's like the best word that I can think of at this point. But your like, social, yeah, your social score, like the trust that you build people in this space, is one of like the most valuable things that you own building here. Because if you are introduced to somebody that you trust, you have trust by proxy of that person, which means you've bypassed a lot of the fatigue that a lot of us have built just existing in the world if you're online to any measure of degree. Which means that relationship and network marketing, grassroots level marketing, and alongside community marketing, internal marketing, are very, very valuable right now, which also means that the trust and the integrity that you build with your community needs to be top notch, consistent. And any founder in specific needs to, simultaneously learn how to be trustworthy, transparent, have some sort of reliable, engagement with the people that they're with. And they also have to be able to like accurately communicate to the people that they're leading where they're going, right? Because otherwise they'll just go elsewhere. It's really easy for us to just go to the next thing if somebody screws up, because we're all spoiled for choice here in Web3. But to set the stage for that, that's why influencer partnerships, KOL partnerships, streamers, gamers, content creators who have built a measure of trust with their audience. That's why we're seeing that's so very valuable right now in Web3, as well as like, like backroom partnerships, deals, those are very important too. But building out like your campaign strategy by sort of, leveraging the trust of a lot of the other people that have built trust in their, spaces, that is a very valuable, user acquisition strategy, especially if it's something that requires people's focus. So back to gaming in specific, we know that like, one of the reasons that we can get people engaged in a game more than the first time, more than to just get like the free thing, means that our favorite people are somehow aligned with that game. So for instance, like I know that, some of my favorite people are, in Sparkball, or my favorite people are in Dark Times, or I know some of my favorite people are in Castle Blackwater or Cocody. And so I know when they're doing an event, I want to show up there, I want to learn the game, and I want to go hang out with my friends, because in that particular vertical where we were just talking about, product market fit, in that particular vertical, that particular audience still has a playful and fun, persona. They still like to game the systems. They still like to play with their friends, and they like to have a joyous time here in Web3. And so that is, figuring out how to merge product market fit alongside user acquisition strategies. And that is also another, you know, tip for founders is like have somebody on your team who has the capacity to orchestrate those things from a higher perspective, and then figure out how to lay out a strategy and a system and a path to get that down from the micro level as well. And that's not easy to do because a lot of people's brains don't work that way, but there are some low-key geniuses that know how to figure those things out. So when it comes to like user acquisition strategies, it's like basically like kind of stay away from, well, unless this is your goal, but overall try to stay away from the, you know, the strategies that only bring people there for one go. You know, that's even just like basic, you know, marketing strategy. It's like if you're going to take the, you know, if you're going to put all these resources in your top line funnel, you know, with like a bunch of airdrops, for instance, you know, what's your capture mechanism? Like after you're actually bringing people into your ecosystem, how are you actually, you know, capturing them and keeping them there in that ecosystem where they actually want to stay in that ecosystem? And there's a lot of marketing strategies that are doing that from the top line funnel, but they don't know how to keep people in their ecosystem. And that's where a lot of these, you know, frustrations are happening, because, and it's also very misleading because we know what hype marketing looks like and we know how it tricks people. But it's also something that I think the next, you know, next level people need to be, you know, overall, like everybody that's investing in the space, watch out for is like engagement. Like are you noticing that there's a lot of actual real engagement in that particular community, in that particular server? Because then that means that at least that particular project has a basic understanding of product market fit in combination of their user acquisition strategies, which means at least at a basic level, they'll know how to take that into their actual, you know, development when they're actually trying to bring people on for when their product is not just in the emerging phase or the development phase, but when they're actually really ready to put their product to market. But really, when it comes to like Web3, I have so much to say on this, but I'm just going to leave it on these last three things. You know, like when it comes to user acquisition, you know, a lot of the unusual advice very much applies, and it's kind of laughable, to be honest. Like for instance, in the last space that I was in, like we would all joke that I got all of these S tier speakers on our spaces just from gifts, literally gifts. Like I would just go out and I just like upgraded my gift game to like A tier, just go like sending it off to just, you know, some S tier people, like S tier influencers, and cracking them up and just being like, all right, Nix, we'll be there, you know. And that was the introduction of how I met people in this space, because it again, it made sense. It was part of that ecosystem, it's part of that vertical, it's part of the fun area of Web3, and it made sense and it aligned with their persona and their personality, and it works. You know, another really unusual, you know, piece of advice is, you know, like user generated growth hacking, for instance. So like actually once you've captured your users, you know, how can you actually use their user generated content to spit back out onto social media some organic use cases of people using your product, and not something that looks absolutely fabricated. Like user generated content is huge right now. Every platform loves it because it aligns with the algorithm, right? Another really hilarious thing that people are doing right now is reactive marketing. You know, for instance, you leverage like the trending news, you know, the trending news, like maybe somebody like, you know, messed up on their, you know, their security or their, you know, on their campaign, and you use that as a reactive marketing strategy because you have a better solution to that project. So you piggyback off of their algorithm and bring them into your server. Like it is so fun the way that you can use Web3 user acquisition strategies in this space. And I highly encourage like anybody to get that wild person on your team that is just like willing to be a little creative and a little odd and figure these things out for you, because it's fun and it works. But yeah, I'll stop with that because I could go on
No, no,
that forever, because
it's
that's clearly that's my jam.
of course, of course. Well, I'm glad we had you for that part, because I think there's so much, you know, I mean, like I was saying, onboarding, right? That's basically user acquisition strategies. And so it's great to know your thought process on it. I think, if we could clip the first 45 seconds when you were talking about social credit, and maybe we should circle back and come up with a more fun term for that that's palatable, so people can understand it and then start to leverage it for themselves. But I think there's a whole concept there. But I was just thinking to myself as you were going on, we should just have a whole space on this sometime, because I think there are a lot of people that are reaching for those same things. And it sounds like, Nix has a great handle on the why as well as the how. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people listening back that can take a whole bunch away from that. I do want to just be conscious of Ryan's time. I think he's got a couple more minutes. Appreciate you staying past the full hour mark. And I'm going to throw you a softball here, because we said we were going to talk about Web3 gaming. I think it's a hot topic in the space. And I kind of want you to just have the direction to go anywhere you want to go. So I'm going to ask you, where do you see Web3 gaming in the air quotes future? And why don't you just run with it and tell us what we should be looking forward to in Web3 gaming?
Yeah, of course. First, I want to circle back to one thing you mentioned, maybe creating a different term for social credit. I'm going to go ahead and just say cred, but I feel like maybe South Park overused the ever-living shit out of that in one of their recent episodes, so maybe not. Completely different context there.
We'll just spell it with a 3, and then everyone will know. #cred.
Yeah, a 3 and then a K, and then I think people get the gist.
All right, you're onto something. We'll get in the DMs.
All right, so exactly. So, and by the way, I can stay a few minutes longer than just 10 minutes. So, in terms of where we go in Web3 gaming, what does that look like in the future? I think first, and I usually like to provide a little bit of context. First, I like to look at the past of Web3 gaming. We look at the last cycle that happened, that took place during 2020, 2021, 2022. And a lot of the hype around Web3 gaming was in play to earn gaming, right? I can log in, I can play video games, I can earn money to either supplement or completely replace my income. And there were a couple of major leaders in the space, Axie Infinity obviously being one of them. But there were a lot of projects that were trying to kind of mimic that model in terms of earning capability. And that was really the big thing that was being pushed. But it came at the expense of a lot of potential quality gameplay. Like the games that people were playing, they were games where people could actually go in, earn money, and replace their income. Like if you look specifically at Axie Infinity's impact in the Philippines, that was gigantic. A lot of people from that region of the world logging in and quitting their jobs because they were making enough money just from playing Axie Infinity. It was huge. But a lot of the games that were trying to mimic that, they were so focused on the blockchain integrations for gaming, and they were so focused on the earning mechanisms that they didn't necessarily take the time to fully flesh out and develop a gaming concept and a content circle that will ultimately retain users long term after a lot of potential earning mechanisms have been expunged. And a lot of the treasuries for these projects, or a lot of the value behind the token maybe, has simply gone away. So a lot of those different projects that were building during that time, they had such a short lifespan because they didn't focus on quality of gameplay. They didn't focus on its ability to create content that ultimately could users would be able to play and enjoy and share across different social platforms. They were so focused on the earning mechanism that a lot of sustainability just completely went away. So fast forward to now, and I think what's kind of coming through the pipeline when it comes to Web3 gaming is that there is such a major emphasis from a lot of different people on quality of gameplay in Web3 gaming, which absolutely it should be there. And specifically in our server, if you look at the Discord server for Neo Launch, a lot of what we've been playing lately has been Sparkball. It's one of the projects in the space that has garnered so much natural and organic hype simply because the gameplay is awesome. And that's it. You look at the game, you play it in kind of a competitive 4v4 style. You understand that not just from a gameplay perspective that it's super fun, but it's also fun to watch and just kind of learn about the different ways to play the game, strategy. Like for instance, we just had a tournament with Paladins DAO this past weekend where everyone was playing Sparkball and they were streaming it, and it got a bunch of attention from a couple different KOLs who were participating in the tournament as gamers, but also people who were just there to watch and learn how to play the game. And because it's not available to the wider public yet. It's just for a couple of select people who hold the right NFTs, like a Neon Launch membership, wink, wink, or people who got connected to the project really early on. It's not fully accessible to the public yet, so a lot of people were just sitting there watching, being curious about the possibilities of playing that game in the future. So I think now, if you look at this cycle versus last cycle, the last cycle, there was a much larger emphasis on the earning element within gaming and how much value can I extract from a game as a user. That was the big focus. And because of that, and it led to a lot of sustainability issues, I think fast forward to now, you see a lot of projects that are starting to focus on the Web2 and the gameplay appeal of their games. Maybe not as much in the earning mechanism, that's still under consideration, but there's just much, much more of a focus on how do I drive users to play this game, and how do I make the game as fun as I possibly can to keep them engaged. So when we do launch NFT collections that ultimately have utility within the ecosystem, when we do launch a token, we know that we have a user base in place that is going to absolutely eat it up because of the experience that we've already created for them in the ecosystem. But I think as we go from this current cycle to fast forwarding, I think eventually we'll start to see a little bit more of a balance between the fun elements of the gameplay, the content creation aspect of it, and the earning mechanism. There's a lot more of an emphasis right now on the gameplay, and in the past there was a lot more of an emphasis on the sustainability and the economy and how much money I can earn. And I think as we move forward, we're going to start to see a little bit more of a balance between the two. No one's really figured out that formula correctly yet. And I don't really think there's going to be one specific formula when it comes to, play to earn and value extraction from an ecosystem with gaming. There's going to be a lot of different projects that have a lot of different solutions, but no one's completely perfected a solution just yet. And I think as we start to see a little bit more maturity in the Web3 gaming space, we'll start to figure out, what works and what doesn't when it comes to those earning mechanisms. Maybe it's dividing the ecosystem into different parts. And I'll use, one of the projects that we're working with as an example, a project called Galaxy Games. They created a single player and a multiplayer within their ecosystem. The single player does not have a lot of earning mechanisms. It doesn't have any kind of blockchain elements really incorporated into it, but it has exposure not just on Elixir, which is more of a Web3 gaming platform, but also on Steam. And it's one of the first projects from Web3 gaming that will actually be listed on Xbox and PlayStation, which is absolutely huge for exposure purposes. But it's just a single player element of the game. So there is a campaign involved with 50 to 100 hours worth of gameplay. And once the user completes that, they want to know what's next. And what's next is the multiplayer level of the ecosystem, which is being built on and deployed on Elixir that has different earning capabilities to it. So maybe it's separating out the ecosystem like that, or maybe it's the competitive nature of the gaming, where if you're just playing the game casually, there's not a lot of earning mechanisms, but if you're playing the game competitively in more of an esports format, then maybe that's where a lot of the earning potential can potentially come into play, is not time spent in the ecosystem, but quality of time spent. So there's a lot of potential verticals that ultimately can lead to kind of that balance within Web3 gaming. But that's where I see it right now. Right now it's about quality of gameplay. It's about exposure to Web2 audiences, getting your games featured not just within Web3 circles, but in Web2 circles as well, like what Galaxy Games is doing on PlayStation and Xbox. But also now, focusing on gameplay quality, and I use Sparkball as the shining example there. But as we move forward, a lot of that, play to earn elements of the game, they're going to be sought out because a lot of people are still wanting those blockchain elements to be infused. How can I use this to supplement or replace my income? And eventually we'll figure out the right balance for it. But I think in the meantime, we need to focus on sustainability within Web3 gaming and create a baseline of games or a baseline of products within games that can ultimately drive the future of the ecosystem or the future sustainability of Web3 gaming, rather than games with short-term value extraction that ultimately end up folding or completely going away after just a couple of years.
Awesome. Well, tons to digest there. Wish we could do a whole segment on that too. So we definitely got some follow-up shows on the Birdhouse to dive much deeper with you, Ryan, on Web3 gaming, especially, it seems like every day things are changing. And I just want to give Monique a quick opportunity because, right now play to earn seems like a good concept for someone who's just behind the controller. But you did mention you have a group of ladies doing streaming. What, from a streamer's perspective, is there something that Web3 provides that typical Web2 gaming hasn't figured out yet, or that you guys could see? And then we'll wrap on that, and we'll start our final comments.
Oh wow. Well, this is going to be a salty take, guys, so get ready for it. From from a gamer streamer perspective, their perspective of gaming right now is that, a lot of people in Web3 gaming are basically taking older games and repackaging it and trying to sell it back to people in the space. So I think that I think that the point is like, are they really benefiting from, Web3 gaming? Yes and no. Not from the game itself. There are a lot of streamers and a lot of gamers right now that are still hunting for that game that they just absolutely want to fall in love with. But in most cases, it's not quite there yet. But also part of the process is there's a lot of, like, as we mentioned before, there's a lot of dynamic elements that are coming into play when it's coming to gaming. We want to incorporate all of the crypto elements, all the Web3 elements into these games, and it's not an easy process. Not everyone's figured it out. But really, like, from a I'm going to flip this question around in a sense of, like, what would I like to see in Web3? I would really love to see games build and engage their audiences different in Web3 in a way that's in much better alignment for the streamers and the gamers and personas here, and then also the ecosystem. So, like, for instance, like, no game, very, very few games appeal to every single persona type. So let's, like, simply, like, let's not try to appeal to every persona type. Like, appeal to your own persona type, because your persona type, and build a game around that, and then build your community around your own persona type. And that's going to be a really great starting point for a lot of these indie game developers, because a lot of them are getting advice from people that will not know how to build a game that they would want it to be built, and it creates so much clutter in their strategies and attracting the right people into their game. So in that sense, I would really like for people just kind of, like, zero in on, like, what's the game you like to play, because hey, you're going to be playing that game probably with the same people for, like, the next 5 years, because game development, hey, that's not easy. So you should probably really love your game, because if you really love your game and you're able to communicate that vision to the people you're attracting into your community, especially your content creators, especially your streamers, especially your gamers, like, you're going to attract the same, hopefully, if you've thought of your strategy in that way, you're going to attract the same people that have the same persona type, the same neurotype, and you guys can build this amazing attractor, this amazing magnet to people just like you. And that's going to feel very satisfying. We've heard that from so many founders that we worked with, and how very, very satisfying it is to host an event where people just love your game. And that's not something that a lot of founders are actually experiencing, because they don't know how to build in this space, and they're having a lot of struggle. One really simple, piece of advice for that really is, leverage the gamer brain on the gamer. Like, have your gamers hunt down your bugs and reward them for it. Like, that is such a simple fix. That is such a simple way to reward people for being in your space. Utilize the gamer brain, that particular neurotype, reward them for that, and actually say, hey, like, our game needs bug hunters. Like we need people to come up here and find all the problems, and we will reward you. Because right now, like, a lot of streamers, a lot of gamers, like, they're not able to communicate honestly real feedback about a game, because they're so worried about hurting that brand and that directly hurts the brand, because we are building games in an agile way, where everybody gets, full visibility of every phase of the game. So, that's something that I would really love to see Web3, games sort of embrace. Like, like learn how to build in this unique ecosystem. There's a lot of elements to leverage that almost nobody's leveraging yet. So I mean, the first person that takes on that gaming, like, please send me a DM and send me that way, so that I can congratulate this person and give them like a virtual handshake, because I'm like, please, thank you, like we need to have these things. But really, when it comes down to it, like, just focusing on making enjoyable games, and like kind of stand back a little bit from trying to utilize too many of the Web3 and crypto elements too early, because hey, that's emerging tech anyways. That's not really supposed to be usable and playable all the way yet. Like, just really focus on just building the game with your community and just have a good time. Like, don't over complicate it, because it's gonna hurt your community building process, your user acquisition process, like your product market fit even as well, because it's going to create this like mixture of messaging, is because all of those things work together. That's that's like probably 2%,
Right.
honestly.
Well,
What I
well,
think
I
about
I
Web3 gaming.
appreciate I appreciate no,
Stop it.
I appreciate it, and I wouldn't say that was a salty take. I think one of the things that that I look for in spaces, and I think something the Birdhouse is trying to produce is, knowledgeable people with real backgrounds, but honest takes. Because if we are just selling hype and hyperbole, that's not good for anyone, just to get the attention. And so, thank you for keeping it real with us, but also providing, some real tangible solutions. And I think those connections can be made. And I think that, Web3 gaming doesn't necessarily have to be about the end consumer experience as much as you were saying, the development and the things that Ryan were tipping off, that, this connection to the brand at an early stage does provide a better long-standing product than shipping someone something that they don't necessarily want. So great takes all around. I do know we're coming up to about 90 minutes. This has been a fantastic show. I'd love to have both you guys on together separately. Any future episodes of the Birdhouse. We didn't even get into all of our topics today, but just amazing conversation. And one thing we like to do just here at the end is kind of give projects or speakers that came up and contributed about 90 seconds just to mention anything that didn't come up during the space that's important to them or to their community as they're building in this space, and just leave us with that. So Ryan, I'll give you a chance. If you have to dip after that, we appreciate you. But yeah, just hit us with any final thoughts you think are worth noting.
Yeah, my final thoughts and kind of where I'll wrap up is that when we take a look at not just the future of gaming, or we take a look at the future of Web3 in general. A lot of what we're doing is ultimately bringing projects forward that we feel like are value adds to the ecosystem in whatever fashion it is that they're building, whether that's a DeepIn project, whether that's AI or infrastructure, or Web3 gaming. But crucially, when it comes to us and our philosophy on projects that we launch, we want to make sure that we're also giving those opportunities to the best people and the best builders who are capable of, building out the ecosystem that they set forth. So, when we look at projects that we're reviewing, we want to make sure that the product does have a good product market fit, that it's of a, value add to the given genre category that they're trying to build in, but also that they are the right people for the job, that they have the right experience, that they have the right mindset in order to, really drive a project and drive an ecosystem forward. So, it's not just about finding the tech or the product market fit. It's also about finding the right people that you want to associate with and that you want to build with when it comes to Web3. So just want to share that one of the most important things that we ultimately look for is we want to make sure that we're associating and building with the people that we want to build with in Web3. And I'm very happy that, between our network and the people in the spaces here today, that we've really been able to be successful in that element and build a lot and host a lot of really cool events alongside people that, that we like and people that we care about. So I do want to thank you for the time. Thank you for having me on the space tonight. Really do appreciate the platform, and hopefully we can be here, Nix and I, maybe together or separately here in the near future.
Yeah, pop in anytime, come up, request. We'll definitely get you guys on stage. And I love that ethos too, especially as someone who would be interested in being a community member, to know that you're not just looking for maximum value, but you are actually building with people who have those capabilities. And so that's refreshing, to know that you're investing in something potentially very powerful from people who have vetted it well beyond your own needs. So
Yep. Our motto, our thesis has always been to cut the bullshit. We don't want to create hype. We want to provide opportunities for people that are capable and people that we like, to community members and people that we value and people that we like. So yeah,
awesome.
really do appreciate the time here, man.
Of course, look forward to more. Monique, 90 seconds. Let's hear it. Last thoughts.
Thanks. I would say very first thing, check out the Neo Launch account, the one Ryan's under, and then find our Discord. Just like simply join our Discord. We always have amazing events with founders sharing early alpha on all the projects that they're working on. We would love to have any of you guys join any of our AMAs, any of our gaming events. We also are always partnering with a lot of the communities in gaming. A lot of our friends are actually in the audience right now. Going to do a shout out to Van Ho, Kayla, Alejandro, Weirdo, and Crypto Monk. Like, thanks for being here and hanging out with us and, showing us some love. I will also say, check out Van Ho Spaces next week. We just started a girl spaces group. We are having the CEO of a new Animoca brand on our spaces. We would love to have anybody listen and come up on stage and ask her questions, because she's really building some amazing stuff. But really just connect with us, send us a DM, hang out. We love building our community and we want to connect with super cool people. Just like Corey, Ian, and Micro over here in the Blubird team. Like, we are so happy that you guys are now part of our family and we are part of yours. So thank you again for having us here, and can't wait for the next one.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ian, I'll pass it to you real quick. I know, Corey, we're all wishing you the best. Hope you're feeling better soon, mate. Always add something inspiring here at the end. But Ian, hit us up. Final thoughts?
Well, I appreciate Ryan and Monique coming and dropping lots of insight, knowledge, and passion here. We certainly were able to pick that up. Monique, I know you mentioned Van Ho and Erica particularly earlier about the new community and what was going on. So I would love them to share, whether it's replying to the space, to Blubird, to myself, and give a couple of thoughts about why they're so passionate about it. Because if you're aligned with them, I think they must be amazing as well. And as far as, how I'd like to close it up, there's a great quote by Steve Jobs. He said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they could change the world are the ones who do." So I just appreciate the crazy change makers here who are looking to change the world and looking forward to doing it together.
I love that quote.
So, hey, Ian, I'll do you one better. How about we get the gamer girls on a spaces? We're gonna do a girl raid. We can talk about all the cool stuff that we're up to, and you can talk to them yourselves. They are amazing. They are amazing. So good call out on that.
Well, I would love that because I have a long history in gaming, back to the days of Acclaim Entertainment. I don't know if anyone remembers that. Atari. I actually live about half an hour from the headquarters of Epic Games. So gaming, to me, gaming is a way to connect communities. I know Ryan had mentioned it's not just the players, but the people who come to watch. And it reminds me of, going to like a sporting event or a concert. You have the people on the field or on the stage, but then you have all the community members around them that reinforce, bring that passion, bring that energy. And, community is everything. Without a community, we're just individual Lego pieces. When we come together, we build the world.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. And And I was also just thinking as you were giving us that Steve Jobs quote, we've had such fantastic contribution from our guests here and such an amazing discussion. But I also just want to shout out everyone who came through, everyone who's listening to the recording. You guys are here too, and you're crazy enough to think it can get done, and that support means the world to us. So keep jumping in. My final thought, I'll keep it short. There seems to be a debate on X again today, whether it's Telegram or Discord for your communities. This seems to come up every 2 to 3 months. I just want to remind everybody, Bluebird provides you the opportunity for both, as I'm sure our other projects do. But jump in our Discord, even if you can't get on stage and you want to ask questions. Come on Telegram, hang out with us anytime you want. And then I just want to announce, if you enjoyed this conversation, looks like next week is going to be an absolute banger too. We're going to be just joined with Red Belly Network. And our guest speaker is going to be Vincent Grimoli, who's the founder and CTO over there. So there's some amazing stuff cooking, and we can't wait to tell you guys about more of that, as well as getting them up here and hearing fresh perspectives on the topics at hand. So want to thank all you guys again for being here this week. We couldn't do it without you, and to our amazing guests, thank you so much for your contribution. Awesome conversation. Until next week, we'll catch you for episode 7.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day or night if you're in my part of the world. Take care.